It's Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Few things. One is tonight on CBS 2 New York. They have a reflection. Now, my last son was born 2012. It was the same year that Superstorm Sandy happened for Long Island. So there's like a window and a following of a traumatic event for the rest of Long Island that they lived through. It marks a whatever. So they have a post in time. I have a biological post in time being the birth of my son. And then the storm happened later that year when I returned back to work. But right before I returned back to work. But I know where I was in 2012 when it happened. So these are like landmark and anchors in time of, I was still not okay then, but I wound up whatever, and just things were going on. Things were known by whatever keeps watch. I don't know what they call themselves. Again, I don't know who showed up the night that I showed up on Nick Santarelli's lawn. I don't have access to those records. I don't know who keeps those records. I don't know why that entire situation just like disappeared, like it didn't exist. It's frightful. And then to have my future, like my upcoming future, totally like ruined for I don't know what reason, with something going on in the outer works of however management works around here. So I'm watching the Superstorm Sandy, and I'm watching how the documentors, the photojournalists, how they go back to show footage from 10 years ago, and then they're showing their conversation now. Their conversation now almost ties in a little bit of what I've been doing on my whatever, when like something almost traumatic, it's like post-traumatic stress of things that have happened to me on Long Island, but there's nobody to report it to necessarily. And there were people who showed up and said they were going to make a report, but where? I don't know. How to follow up? I don't know. I mean, like, how is it that so many people settle lawsuits and get so much money? They use it like a casino in Long Island. But, like, what law firms are they using? And when agencies involved, or when it's big area crime, like the kind where they've hurt you so severely that you can't, like, I mean, and then you can't function. I mean, like, this just doesn't make sense, and I don't know how to make sense of it. And then in real life, I've got other things going on tonight.
That it did, and 10 years ago, while Jennifer was out in the field, Cindy Shue was back here on the anchor desk, and the two reconnected to reflect on their coverage.
And they said, be ready to go on the air at 2 a.m. And who was anchoring? It was you, Cindy. I remember standing on this little bridge in Quad and having you say, whoa, it's pitch black there. What's happening? And the bridge was tilting back and forth. The boathouse was starting to float. It was all dark out, and we were so nervous. And we were chatting back and forth, trying to make sense of what was happening. And then
like, that's okay, trying to make sense of what was happening. I feel the same thing right now. I'm like trying to make sense of no job, no ability, and deteriorating health with no answers from the local health team and health professionals, and other things that have gone on, people that have come into my life and then disappeared. It's a whole lot of, it adds up to but it started in the beginning really dangerous. And I don't know why better options weren't put in place, knowing how dangerous it began.
And their full conversation streams tonight at 7 on CBS News New York. Stay with us all week long for stories of rebuilding, resilience, and lessons learned in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy.
You know, Jennifer said a great thing. We were all trying to make sense of what was going on.
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't. And
right.
What we were seeing, what we were hearing, what was just happening, and it all unfolding, before our eyes. It jogs so many memories seeing
right.
these pictures.
And you could see the way it almost came back to life in her voice, right? As if it just happened. It's so fresh in the mind.
Yes.
Really something. Don't miss it, 7 o'clock Thursday night.
Yeah, something to see and sort of live back and hope that it never, ever happens again. But, again, we can't guarantee something like that, but it really was. It broke all the rules of what a storm is supposed to do. And let's keep our fingers crossed. Here's your picture outside as it.
Now, what happened for me today is Linda and Lou, Anthony, my car got impounded. Now, when I had control of my life, and Anthony was not in it, the Tiafrio 1975, when he didn't exist in the Nicole Cattaruzza or the Nicole Romer time frame, bills were paid on time. I mean, that Lynn and Lou helped me out with whatever, and that was one thing. Tiafrio comes in, and now I have no income coming in. He takes my car. I tell NYPD I need my car back, that I'm not comfortable with him, liability, 1,000 reasons why. But I get in the mail, I get notices of judgment and enforcement. Today they took my car and impounded it. It's now at some naval yard. I'm like, why is it at the naval yard, Anthony? He's like, that's where the police took it. I go, why isn't it at NYPD? And he's like, I don't know. And so now he needs me to go. I'm like, I don't want to help you out, but I also don't want to lose my car. I mean, these are the things. This is like the post-traumatic stress disorder I got going on with having this kid in my life for this long and not being able to just get rid of, how do you separate from somebody and just get them to leave your kids alone and you alone? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So Lynn and Lou say to me today, they're like, we were at, besides the fact of things that happened while alone in my house, I mean, again, there were witnesses there, but then they all, Jay and Sarah, they all just disappear off to Arizona. Is that on my internal file? Because the guy who's there the night that I got stuck in the side before I went down, Tiafrio went down first. I don't know what happened to him. He just disappeared off the floor, and he was in someone else's car. And whatever that was about, I have no idea. That was one of the Torres's nights. Torres. Invited us out. We were out. And then all of a sudden I get stung. And then I go down. No idea who was there other than Tiafrio. But he wound up anesthetized and in someone else's truck also. Supposedly. Or so the story goes. I don't really know. He just disappeared off the floor. And then I couldn't find him. And then I started getting woozy after the sting. But there was a time frame where I got hit, but I was talking to two people. And then I had to go to the guy that was there. I was like, do me a favor. Who'd you come with? I said, the guy over there. He goes, go over to him and just tell him what you told me about a bee sting. I want to see what he says. I'm like, all right. So I went over there. And I'm like, he doesn't care. He doesn't know what it means, and he doesn't care. And he was like, so then they came over, and they had a discussion with him. They were like, you know who we are? And I don't know what that was all about. But they were like, I'll make a mark on your file for you. To me. And I'm like, what file? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then that was like shortly before I went down, and I don't know what the hell that was all about. But then it just disappears like it never happened, but it did happen. But what was it? And why does this keep happening to me? On Long Island, no less. So Lynn and Lou are saying to me, they're like, someone showed them a surveillance tape of me with my hand out the window. And I'm like, yeah, and she's like, it's just bizarre. And I'm like, now is this the time frame where I couldn't be home because I just didn't want to sit in the bed any longer, but I had nowhere to go? So you were home with my son safely, so I would go for a ride in my car just to get out. But I'd go to Bay Terrace and I'd sit on the surveillance camera, so whoever was watching surveillance knew I wasn't getting in the car with anybody. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing drugs. But it was a Friday night and I was spending it alone because I have nowhere else to go. So I would lock myself in the car and just listen to the radio. And she's like, Nicole, it's just really strange behavior. I was like, says who, Linda? I was like, if you don't want to sit home, but you have nowhere to go, it seems like a really safe bet or safer bet. So at least someone knows if anything happens to you, you're on surveillance camera. Again, it's been really traumatic living in New York. It hasn't been an easy go. So, like, I don't know what normal looks like to you, Lynn. It's not sitting home because I can't, at that time, I couldn't sit, you guys were hostile. I couldn't sit in the living room, and I didn't want to sit in my bedroom on the floor or in the bed. So my car was my only place, shut the engine off and just listen to the radio. That's the not living here. That's living but not living. That's what it's been reduced to here. So tonight, of course, with Tia Freo, so I hear her in her way of explaining what it looked like to her when they showed her the surveillance tapes. And I'm like, right, okay. But what else was I supposed to do? Like, bars are not an option. There's a comedy show every now and again. It's a little off color, but again, it's at least somewhere safe to go, supposedly. Putting my trust in the locals' hands that they're not going to hurt me. So far, it's been all right. So, I have no idea. So, of course, all this trauma comes up again with being with this kid, Tifra, 1975. Because he's not paying the bills. Like, he can't even blame it on me this time. Like, I used to make my money from real estate like I did before he arrived. I paid all of my own bills. I never involved him in paying my bills. I paid my bills. I made the money through real estate. That was it. He had whatever he does in his whatever, and whatever. And so he never contributed, ever. So, there's the trauma again of him using my stuff and with him not paying the bills again. And now it's in my name. So it looks like I'm not paying my bills, which causes me high anxiety, especially since I can't seem to get the help that I need. And I don't know where to turn. And I honestly just don't have the mental fortitude right now I don't know the last time they took me down for no reason, just for being myself and in the field, going about my normal whatever, just trying to stay upright and not being dragged into cars and things. Like, I mean, how do you weather this? And then explaining it to Lynn and Lou, like, there's no such thing as explaining it to them because it's so irrelevant, and then they don't believe me. But there are others in the field that were there when it happened. I mean, it is just so frustrating to live this way. This is the piece, they went back in time in order to show some of the footage from Sandy.
Here officials say because of the village's
And it says 2012. So that was the year he was born.
Or in Suffolk County, it is a battle zone, a war zone. Look behind me. From home to home, everything is gone. The flooding was so widespread here, officials say, because of the village's proximity to Jones Inlet and because Lindenhurst waterfront communities are ribboned with canals. And sir, can you show our audience your home, if you don't mind?
There's not really much to show. It's the roof of where my bedroom was, and there was a dining room there.
Homes pushed off their foundations, water and debris trapping residents.
In that corner, there was a father and a daughter. They get into the attic. And then next day, we heard them screaming. They couldn't open the door.
Lifting up and just floating.
It was just floated and it hit the next house, which now is an empty lot.
The Guvens insurance paid $76,000, 2/3 of the cost to rebuild. They're relieved today because some of their neighbors who got funding from New York Rising are now being asked to show receipts of proof or repay the state.
I was lucky. The house I was living in was far enough from the water. It was not in a flood zone. So I was fortunate. So I didn't take money from the state. I didn't have to pay money back to the state. Not everybody was affected. And then I was selling real estate just shortly after that. That's when I got involved with Exit Links real estate, which at the time, links meant nothing to me. Now I see that there's a golf course, but there was never any reference mentioned. But that word now seems to have more connotation than it did before. But the person who owned Links, he had a lot of contacts. And he brought me to a lot of different meetings, which I thought was really nice. Especially getting back into the business. I really appreciated that social aspect of it. And so, I always went alone.
If you help people, help people. Don't ask them 10 years later their money back. I don't think that's right.
50 miles west in Nassau County, the famed nautical mile in Freeport was under salt water. We were there shortly after the Woodcleft Canal burst at the seams.
And we had like 8 feet of water here, like total destruction, this whole area.
Gerard Bracco's fisherman family settled here from Croatia and almost lost a fish market here for generations.
Docks were ripped up, all our equipment was lost, our electrical systems were lost. It was devastating. I've never seen anything like it.
Transformer fires destroyed businesses. Bracco's restaurant was shuttered. FEMA funding helped.
We worked hard. We had to work our way back.
The community rallied around the historic mile, and family pride helped salvage Captain Ben's.
So it's really getting busy here. Hopefully the future will be bright.
Sandy.
That's what I'm used to with Long Island, is that rally, that community, that sense, like just what Rich gave me when I first joined Exit Links, like bringing me into his community and like teaching me the ropes of how to get back. Like he was in Nassau, I was in Suffolk, but at least in Rockville Center, there was that introduction into a social setting where there is no... Like, I conduct myself like a lady. I don't drink excessively. I'm not looking for trouble. Like, there is no basis for why I go out in public and then I get hunted. There just isn't that, nothing logical if you ever saw me in a social setting. So I don't understand where it comes from. I don't understand, like, I've seen the movies, like The Hunger Games. I've seen Dr. Moreau's Island, where they go and they hunt people down. I don't ascribe to this stuff. I get that it's been done on this island. I just don't know by whom. And I don't know who's the document collector and how to stay on that side of the law to protect myself and to act in according with what they need. It's like they come out for a very little period of time and then they just disappear again after something happens.
Andy spawned activism and a greater sense of community across Long Island. I'm Jennifer McLogan, CBS 2 News.
That it did, and 10 years ago, while Jennifer...
So, that was where I transitioned from Chase, JP Morgan Chase, where there was no Tia Frio in 2012. There was a man who used to come to visit me at Chase with a King Charles dog. He would bring it into the Islandia branch. And of course there were cameras rolling surveillance of me in the office or in the lobby of the bank doing whatever function I was hired for, which was the greeting the customers and looking over customer service on the computer. And that was it. Branch manager was there. It was Lori and Janine. They were fully accounted for as well on that whatever. And that was just before Tia Frio wound up showing up. And I don't know why Frank and some green machine would invite me to blacksmiths and then Tia Frio show up with his whole crew in whatever the heck that introduction or pass off was, but it was unacceptable. I mean, and again, I don't know the intent that they had when when he moved in. I don't, because again, things happened shortly after he arrived that he should have been physically removed by the sheriff's office. He should have never been able to stay. And I should not have this 2022 and whatever happened in between in that very gray area. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. So as far as local telephone, regional telephone, and long distance telephone to control the international callers, or vice versa, I'm having trouble finding Valor reps that I can trust. And I don't know how to look for stars or anchor points any better than what I've been doing or trying to do, which might not seem normal, but it's safer than going out to these social settings where I don't know who's entering the room. I don't know who sent them, and I don't know if I'm going to stay upright the whole night or if you get thrown into like a situation where you just go down and then you have no memory of it and you don't know what happens. Or they come into your house, they take you in an ambulance, they take you to the hospital, they strip you and they anesthetize you in front of the entire doctor staff and then leave you in front of this hospital administration thing, and there was no reason why I should have ever been brought to the hospital and knocked out with tramadol or whatever it was that they knocked me out with. I mean, this is chemical warfare and biological warfare. It's guerrilla warfare, really. I mean, these are horrible events, and I don't have a single person or way of reporting them. I have no idea where you even call from other life events that happened. And who are these people?